All right, ladies and germs, we're back today. We're hanging out with Adam, Savjik Jarnal, of course. This week we're going to be talking about Bolivia, a lot of stuff to cover. I don't know, we don't know too much about Bolivia, but I'll tell you what I do know. This is what I've heard. Fella who they seem to not like there, Evo Morales, has been a thorn in the side of neoliberal governments everywhere because he is a indigenous fella who always sides with the farmers. I think he grew up a farmer himself. He's more on the indigenous side, I think, his background.
He is, yeah.
One of the most striking things was a story that I was just talking to you before about, which was there have been multiple attempts to destroy his, assassinate his character. And these have come in the form of like molestation charges and building up this idea that he's, a straight up pedophile that preys on young women. Now, I don't know the full story, but I do know that on his Wikipedia page, if you go to it, you can scroll down to the bottom and you'll see that there was an incident where a woman came forward and said that she was molested by him. And then, subsequently left the country, escaped the country, and then admitted that she had made that all up and that she was coerced under the police. The police had threatened her family and kept her imprisoned at her home and stuff, and generally was just intimidating her. And, by the time that there was to be any reconciliation by the press, it was too late. The damage is already done. You see this kind of thing all the time with, Amnesty International, when they reported on babies were dying in incubators. Saddam Hussein was just killing babies in incubators. And it was a lie, but by the time that everybody found out, the psychological damage had been done on the people. And so this is kind of the playbook of imperialist media, is to try to come out with the lies, recant, pay whatever. Maybe they sue you for defamation. They pay that. That's the price of doing business. But for the most part, that's how you get them interested in, turning on somebody.
Well, and we should also note that this was revealed just in the last couple of weeks. There's this network being run by the United States, Israel, and Argentina, especially, that are dedicated to undermining leftist movements and governments in Latin America specifically. And this is, Israel has always played a proxy role for U.S. interests in Latin America, which I always find so interesting because, one, it's just so geographically isolated comparatively, and two, what interest does a Latin American have in, Middle Eastern geopolitics, except, of course, the evangelical right, which does have a force in Latin America, just as it does in the U.S. Claw can, expound upon this more, but the Colombian election that happened today, there was some very serious concerns amongst, especially Colombia's left, that the U.S. was going to intervene somehow and undermine it. For example, there were 88 U.S. election delegates who were monitoring said election. There was private software that may or may not have been used to sort of skew results. And to top it all off, a Republican senator was also on the ground observing everything. This all sounds a little strange to me personally. I don't know, the extent to which we're always watching elections in other countries, but because Gustavo Petro has been so diplomatically outspoken on so many things, like Gaza especially, you do have to wonder just what is going to happen. We just got the results a few minutes ago that the one of the right-wing candidates, the far-right outsider, is going to head to a runoff with the left-wing candidate, Cepeda, I believe is his name. He's he's the son of someone who was murdered in a politicide against the leftists in Colombia. So what we're seeing here is the Bolivian protests that have been swimming the nation.
These are the Bolivians. I don't know all the grievances. I do know that the farmers are spearheading it in indigenous communities. And the guy who's in charge is named Rodrigo Paz, and he's not the greatest guy in the world. What he's trying to do is open up a corridor for Western interests to come in and extract the wealth out of it, namely Bolivia's lithium. So Bolivia's economy is defined by the lithium triangle, some hydrocarbon extraction as well. You have foreign powers historically exerting control over these resources. This is the hot spot now that lithium batteries are on the cutting edge, and we have lots of, I would say most of the really important minerals that are in the world. China not only possesses them, but also has the capability of refining them and using them to a degree where the United States is clamoring just to get them. They don't even have a way to really process a lot of this stuff yet.
Well, remember in the 2019 coup against Evo Morales, someone on Twitter, just a nobody on Twitter, accused Elon Musk of having a hand in the coup because Tesla especially wants all that lithium for its car batteries, for its electric car batteries. And he responded in 2019, we'll coup whoever we want.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I think that's something that is often missing in the discussions when we talk about like a green revolution or transitioning to clean energy. We always end up having to answer the question, well, where does the raw material for said green revolution come from? And it would come from, these places in the global south that would rely on, all of our iPhone batteries come from slave mines in the Congo,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's funny too, is because we're so far behind in battery technology. You have China is the biggest in the world, and they have the latest and greatest technology, and most of the electric cars run on CATL, Chinese batteries. And this was recent news. I don't know if I said this last time, but Ford is now pivoting. They're not even able to keep up with the EV race. So now what Ford is doing is they're pivoting from being a car company. This was the latest news. And they're going to start being battery creators, battery manufacturers, so they say, for batteries that are needed for these data centers, which is like the last play that the United States has in their pocket, is to go after, we're going to build a bunch of data centers because we don't have any other fucking plan. And this is what they're doing. But the kicker is, Ford isn't making their own batteries. They're leasing technology from CATL, stamping their name on it, and marking up, the American market for it.
No, go on. Sorry, I was going to ask you a question.
That was first. That was it. That's
no,
it.
But where does China's, where do they get the materials needed for their batteries? Do they have lithium mines somewhere in the country? I don't know.
I believe so. Here, well, I'll tell you what. Let's not linger in obscurity. Let's find out. I'll ask the internet, because the internet knows everything.
Ask DeepSeek. That'll give you a. Ask DeepSeek.
The pro China.
Ask DeepSeek and then ask ChatGPT and compare and contrast the results.
Oh, I love doing that with the massacre. What was the Tiananmen Square massacre? Asking both. One says, "Oh yeah, it was terrible," and the other goes, "No, we can't talk about this.
We can't talk about it."
But yeah, they're doing okay. Lithium in China, I think, is the primary place where they're getting it. They're getting it from themselves, but I know that they're opening up negotiations with other countries over it. They're not anti-globalist in this way, right? They're actually interested in keeping the global economy going, just making it slightly different, a little more fair, honestly, when you look at bilateral creditors. Like, they really aren't trying to debt trap people as hard, but they still have interests in these regions.
I think Max Isle put it the best way, is that with China as this sort of counter hegemonic superpower, it's not a perfect alternative to American unipolarity, but it is the only one that currently exists. Like, it is one that can help sovereign development. Just as, we talk about Russia in the Sahel. If it weren't for Russia, the Sahel would be it'd be like Syria would be under an Al-Qaeda American proxy government by now. So,
yeah. And it's Russia, America took decades and promised them stuff like nuclear power and never came through on it. And Russia has just come in and started the first nuclear power plant in something like the DRC, I think, the Democratic Republic of Congo. They're just going to do it because why not? And what's funny is you do have Wagner Group there. They're fighting the imperialist guys. Those guys aren't a joke. Those guys are mean as fuck, and they're crazy. I heard that the people, if you defect from Wagner, they track you down and kill you with a sledgehammer.
I totally believe that. Well, the founder of Wagner he was imprisoned in the Soviet Union, and then when the Soviet Union fell, he was, freed. So he became a good capitalist and became a merc, and now, I mean, that the coup attempt back in was it 2023 was hilarious. That only lasted shorter than one of the episodes on your show, I think, the entire coup attempt. But I mean, when we look at the way these countries, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, the way they interact in the global South, I think it's important we recognize that it isn't perfect per se. It's not establishing a revolutionary foothold in the global South in the way that, say, Mao used to. But what it does do is it creates alternative pathways for these states to develop on a term that is not set by the IMF or the World Bank. There are contradictions within that. There are exploitative elements to what China does in these countries, but at the same time, you can't tell me that it's worse than what the IMF or World Bank or the US does. I mean,
which is promising, because then there's this idea that we are moving out of this singular polar world where competition breeds innovation, and then everybody gets a better deal on everything because there's a new kid on the block who's offering you better deals. I guess there's some truth to that.
It is.
But the right now times when they're having trouble adjusting to the new paradigm, and the United States is a very volatile, declining empire, and China's just like, it's okay, buddy, it's okay, we'll help you rebuild your stuff, and they're like, no, we're going to kill everybody. This is where the United States currently is, and how bad it gets. We're waiting to see it.
Well, we're in an era where, energy policy alone, for example, part of the reason that the US is frantically trying to build data centers is because China has a leg up in that its energy production is just so much more cheap than anything in the US, because they produce almost twice, if not three times as much electricity as the United States does, despite the fact that the US has been an electrified country longer than China has been a communist country. And yet,
one of the traps is also building your infrastructure at a certain time and then not being able to pivot because you have this for-profit model, or you have this stuff where this cultural revolution and all this jazz. Hey man, this paved the way for them to rebuild archaic forms of hierarchy within, societal organizations, and just say, we're retooling everything. And then that's been set for how long now? Since 1949. they're set to go. They can't introduce democracy in the traditional neoliberal sense if they tried. There's too much built in, and for us it's the same. We've got too much bullshit built into ours, so we can't pivot to do what they're doing, which is genius central planning, which is going to set anybody ahead who's practically thinking about things rather than saying, no, the invisible hand will do everything, don't worry.
Well, I've been thinking so much about like the invisible hand, and even then, when people talk about the invisible hand, they don't actually understand what Smith was trying to say. Smith was not a free market, neoclassical forerunner. He has more in common with Karl Marx than he does with like Milton Friedman. But what I find so funny is when you really look at how the U.S. does capitalism, there is no free hand. There is no invisible market. We're seeing it, now with the way that, we're talking about AI build outs that are being, heavily subsidized by the US. The US literally bought Intel, basically. The US made Intel its own, quasi state owned company. 2008 alone, with the way that, like, part of the reason we're in this economic downturn now is because the Fed kept interest rates so artificially low for so long after 2008. And then during Trump's first term, they tried to racket it up just a little bit. Investors freaked out. The market panicked. And then Trump managed to convince Powell to keep interest rates low. COVID hit. They were zero. And then in 2023, they said, all right, we're going to raise interest rates now to cool inflation. And the economy has not recovered. The world economy has not recovered since then. Obviously, there was the pandemic that did genuinely disrupt supply chains and create this mess of inflation that we're in now. But at the same time, consumer spending is being driven by the 10% of Americans who own stocks, because the stock market is the only thing doing well. And this is all because, again, the U.S. government does play a very fundamental role in the economy. It's just for the benefit purely of the capitalists.
But even then, like, I put together this thing with my friend Dennis, and I think Marcus helped on that. 1.7 trillion economic crisis set to collapse Wall Street's artificial valuations by 2028. So, so the entire economy and all its moving parts and pieces. We had a 30-point thing, and we talked about all the. You kept saying the stock market is up, but everything is shit. Why is the S&P going up so high?
Yeah.
And so I had been getting some information and understanding that first of all, you have an incredible amount of debt, right? It's in more debt. It can't even service its basic needs because of how much debt is in. The other thing is China is dumping bonds. You have all these countries now are moving away from these long-term things. The other thing I mentioned last week was the corporate news media is printing bullshit stories like, oh, everything's great. There's these good valuations in these companies, and they have these new products, and everything's AI. It's going to be great. And it's all fake, like, oh, the job report just came out and it's great. Yeah. And they retract all the job numbers a week later. This is just keeping the face on, and it's working. And so they print these news stories, Wall Street Journal and whoever else that Rupert Murdoch owns. They print, the Bloomberg comes out. These are entertainment products. They aren't financial advice per se. And so what happens is they come out and say, oh, the stock market's hot, NVIDIA, buy. Then the algorithms pick that up, make purchases based on that. Most of the, 90% of the stock market is owned by institutions and larger players, and only 10% might be retail investors.
Yeah.
Then you have, so it's like a house of cards, overvaluations, which when, in 2001, when the stock market crashed, all this liquidity evaporated overnight because it was all speculative. We were all just hoping and praying that any company that was an internet company at the time was going to be a big deal, because most people are stupid. in the United States, and especially Wall Street. And now Wall Street is really peddling blind. And then, of course, you had the 2008 thing and the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme and Enron and all these things where in broad daylight, these people are doing fraud. They're doing fraud as a standard practice, and it keeps getting found out, and we don't reform the system. We just continue to deregulate it. And because what we have to do is get the shareholders back their money, and this is a big deal. And but there's not limitless growth here. There's not limitless growth opportunities, especially when manufacturing superpowers like China have overtaken them and created their own financial system. So we're panicking, and now we're playing even more dangerous money games while using our military to try to keep that going. But that's not even the beginning of it. So the other thing is, as the dollar loses value, I know I've said this before, as the dollar loses value, it's lost 20% off the euro just in the last year. 20% that I'm losing because I have dollars and I'm here in Europe and I'm losing fucking money, and it's lost. So what happens when that happens is nobody holds cash. They know that the dollar is shit. They print too much of it. They've been printing too much of it for 6 years now. They sock it into equities. And this is what, the first big wave, and then COVID hit and it crashed the economy, and then it came up and then flatlined for a while and crashed again. And, Richard Wolff says these contractions will get shorter duration. Like we'll see more and more in a shorter time period. Crash, 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 crash.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. So there was like a bunch of other really mathematical stuff that I didn't fully understand that Dennis put in here that I didn't. It all adds to it. And the bond is the other thing. So a lot of bonds are set to expire in 2028. And this is the big cliff. Non-financial corporate junk debt maturity. These companies most dependent on cheap debt face binary outcome. Refinance, operating cash flow, obliterating rates, or default. So you either refinance, get another loan that's way worse, or you default on the loan and the entire economy crashes. Most people will write more debt, but then that just increases the debt. It doesn't really do anything more for the stock market. And so we're running on fumes. And we have no idea what we're doing. And that's all I can say.
Michael. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Well, we have a guest here.
Oh, great! Bring her on.
All right, you ready?
Ready. Everybody, get ready.
Hi.
All right. There she is.
Nice to have you.
How's it going?
Oh, it's great. We're happy to have you. Where are you coming from?
I'm in New Jersey right now, in Kearney. It's like, actually, I don't know if you've all been talking about it, but Delaney Hall is like 20 minutes, if that, away from here.
Yeah, I posted something today about Delaney Hall. We can fill the people in. I mean, there's hunger strikers. What else is going on?
Yeah. I think today is the 6th or 7th day of a labor and hunger strike that reported 300 detainees inside Delaney Hall, a for-profit detention center in New Jersey, are engaged in, and their main demand is full liberation. So they're striking until liberation. ICE goons have been out there and just, doing what they do. There's been supporters there, press, and as Democratic governors tend to do, Governor Sherrill sent in the state troopers, which, if you know anything about Jersey, and take it from Asada, Jersey troopers are the worst fucking pigs out there. Or
really?
Some. Yeah.
I've been in some jurisdictions. They're bad all over, but I can imagine.
I mean, they're pretty fucking bad here. So yeah, it's I've been out there a couple of times, handful of times. Some of our members with Black Alliance for Peace in the New Jersey, New York City Citywide Alliance have been out there, and some of our Solidarity Network members have been out there, supporting families, supporting the organizing happening there, making the connections to our newest campaign with the North-South Project, Boycott the World Cup, Boycott the US, because the FIFA's right around the corner. The final is supposed to be 15 minutes away from Delaney Hall, a literal concentration camp. And I don't know how well versed in football folks are, but I mean, the World Cup makes billions and billions of dollars. Certainly not for the people in the area where they are held, but for the ruling elite of FIFA. And the games are going to be played in NFL stadiums, so the NFL owners are going to be hugely profiting from the World Cup. Yeah, so multiple things are happening.
What's the vibe down there? I mean, as far as you have people organized, how organized are they? Have the
very
protesters
organized.
Become militant? Do we have strategy that we're employing in order to?
Yeah.
How's that going?
I mean, they transferred one of the strike leaders to Elizabeth Detention Center, Gabriel Soto, and for a few days, the folks outside had been successful not letting a van with him inside leave the detention center, but eventually they rolled on through. I think they were literally about to run over some of the protesters to make sure to get him out. And I mean, thankfully there's other strike leaders as well, but obviously that's one of the intimidation tactics that ICE and immigration Geo are using.
Yeah. Geo Group, of course, is the private prison company who stock went up incredible amount as soon as Trump came into office, because, of course, private prisons are big money, and it's a great way to get free labor. So what's some of the advice that you would get from somebody else or give to somebody else at being at something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say there are many ways of supporting Delaney Hall. Certainly, if folks can make it there, I think that is always wonderful, especially as people are coming out. It's always just amazing to see them and their families be able to reunite. Folks can also look for some of the organizations that are on the ground that have been posting the commissaries, I want to say, of some of the folks inside. So Cosecha, New Jersey has been out there. Resistencia en Acción, ISAT of NJ. A few other organizations are Black Alliance for Peace. Several other organizations and media have been out there. I know Status Quo has been out there pretty frequently. Aside from that, I would say if folks are planning on going, as I mentioned before, ICE is being really, and the state troopers are being very, cops are going to cop. So tear gas is flying out there. So I would definitely say, if get the mask, get the gas mask from whatever local hardware store, goggles, helmets. I don't know if folks followed my writing in Black Agenda Report around Peru, but I said, Malcolm ain't lying. The roosters are coming home to roost, or the chickens rather are coming home to roost. And I very much I felt like Lima prepared me for this at Delaney Hall. So you can really see the internal imperialism happening right within the internal colonies of the global North. And, so it's been interesting to see some of these similarities.
So what's it? Yeah, Lima's interesting. So Peru had a big thing earlier this year, right? I just learned about it today. What happened there and what was the end? I know, did they kick the guy out by end of February or something? What was it like? And you were there.
So
Tell us the story.
yeah, so December 7th, 2023. No, sorry, 2022. The coup against Pedro Castillo happened in Lima, in Peru. Pedro Castillo was a rural indigenous teacher. I think he was the president of the teachers union, if I'm not mistaken. Not at all tied to Lima politics or, anything that, carries any weight in Peruvian politics. Peru is also it's an extremely neoliberal place, right? Country. In the 1990s, early 90s, we had Fujimori dictatorship, which really rammed through like blatant neoliberalism, right? So like neoliberalism was first introduced in Chile, right? But I always say that it wasn't until Peru and the Peruvian Constitution of 92 or 93, I forget which one, 93, that you really see the perfection of neoliberalism in the shock doctrine. So we went through what is called the Fujimori shock doctrine. Rampant cutting of any social benefits and entitlements. By law in the Constitution, it was written that all of our natural resources would be privatized for 30-year contracts. So the reason I bring this up, because that's 90, right? Cut to 2021. And you get this rural teacher from that is saying no poor people in a rich country, right? Understanding that those contract laws that had been signed in the 90s would be coming up, right? So he was campaigning on the lithium in Puno becoming nationalized, because who's next to Peru, and especially the south of Peru and Puno? Bolivia, right? So we saw, especially people in southern Peru, saw for the past 20 years a state really governed by the people and being able to use their natural resources, the very rich natural resources, for the benefit of the people, right? So industrializing and nationalizing the lithium in Bolivia to pay for education, to pay for housing, to pay for literally infrastructure, right? I think what's missed in a lot of reporting on Latin America is this like massive divide between capital cities and the rest of those countries, right? Like even in those capital cities, you have areas that are so impoverished that they don't even have running water, right? I'm from Barrios Altos, one of the poorest barrios in Lima. We did have potable water, but there are, in what's called the cerros, literally up in the dirt mounds, areas, massive areas where there's no drinking water, right? Kids have to walk hours to get to school. So you really see this massive class divide. And so I don't even remember the question anymore, but Peru has been, so just to set that up, right? That's the coup that happens in 2022. Massive massacres are happening in Juliaca on January 9th of 2023. The largest massacre, 19 people died in one day. Many other massacres that happened prior to that and even after that. But now we're running into a new election, right? Castillo's still imprisoned. And I think he's actually been formally like sentenced. Although he was deposed unconstitutionally, because even according to their the right-wing Fujimori constitution, you needed 104 votes to I guess in Congress to say that a president would be vacated for moral incapacity. They only got to 101, right? But still, they deposed him. They literally had machine guns pointed at his daughter, who was a child. I forget how old she is or was at the time, no more than 10 years old. He he got caught and was imprisoned. His family was able to seek refuge in Mexico. I believe they're still there, if I'm not mistaken. And he's still in Barbadillo. Boluarte, who was his vice president, took over after his deposition or being deposed after the coup. And she governed at the behest of the U.S. Empire and the Fujimori-controlled Congress, very right-wing fascist Congress, and so even more repression, more massacres continued. She did re-sign those contract laws. I don't believe the lithium was signed on to, but there was, I think she did a exploration contract, I believe, with a country, not surprisingly, a Canadian mining company. So that, Boluarte was in power for quite some time, and then I guess it must have been last year. She was finally deposed because there was a huge crime wave, a crime spree. And I've written a lot about this in Black Agenda Report, so I would also say to look up my writing, because I'm sure I'm missing quite a lot of analysis here. But just to sort of go through the brief recent history of Peru. Right, so she's deposed. Someone else comes in, Jose Heri, who I think was only there for a few months, if that. Now there's another president there, but elections are coming up. And these elections are very important because Fujimori's daughter, Keiko Fujimori, is running. And I have not looked at any of the recent polls, but it's very neck and neck with Roberto Sanchez, who is the other candidate. He's running with por el Perú, Together for Peru. He has said that his first promise is to free Pedro Castillo. We'll see, right? I haven't really studied as much his personal history, but people on the ground are less so in favor of him and more so against Fujimori, right? That's what she represents, the memory of her father and his regime, the economic and really fascist policies that she would pass if she were to become president. I also think that it's really important to look at Peru not just as what's happening in that one country, but also thinking about the lithium triangle, which is Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile, and the south of Peru, because that's why the coup in 2022 happened, right? Was because of the lithium. And if you see the panorama right now, Argentina and Chile are under literal Nazi governments. Bolivia as well, even though the people of Bolivia are staging a hell of a fucking comeback and resistance to that, right? So I think we need to look at this as the U.S. does, right? Looking at a map and seeing what are we conquering here? How are we doing it, right? So you got Chile, Argentina, Peru, right-wing governments, Bolivia, right-wing government, but the people's resistance is very strong right now.
Yeah. So, and I just wanted to ask one question. Correct me if I'm wrong. Castillo actually did try to work or meet halfway with this right Congress. Yeah. He actually did try to
I would say I knew the coup was happening when he let some of the liberal, bourgeois folks in Lima convince him to get rid of Héctor Béjar, his foreign minister, who had normalized relations with Venezuela. And, literally the next day he got him to quit really fired him. And I was like, yep, coup's coming. Shit's about to pop.
But that didn't even help him really then.
Mm-mm,
So
mm-mm.
when there's so the people, what you're saying, and I was thinking of what happened in Colombia today, where again there's like the neck and neck between a far right candidate
Yeah.
and basically like a social democrat, who
Yeah. Yeah.
like you said, a lot of their support seems to stem from just opposition to neoliberal reforms, and all that entails more than like a populist message. But I'm curious if the reason that that this blatantly unappealing candidate is so neck and neck with the alternative, is that because of the sort of urban-rural class divide that you expounded upon earlier, where that happened? That seems to replicate in a lot of Latin American countries.
Absolutely. That is a huge factor. It would be, it's what we call Peru profundo, right? Like the deep Peru. And for whatever country, Bolivia profundo, but the masses of the people, right? The peasantry, really, the working class of the country that far outnumber the professional managerial petit bourgeois class in capital cities like Lima, like La Paz. And yeah, so this, Keiko Fujimori right here. This is our fourth time running, third time, 3 times she's already lost, but she's really, she's psychopathic. To say, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that, but during her father's regime, the first victim of torture was actually his wife, her mother. She helped torture her own mother. Like, this family is not okay. Yeah. No, shit is crazy. And actually, even to go further back into the Fujimori lineage, unsurprisingly, they're Japanese migrants to Peru. But I don't know what relationship, maybe her uncle or some shit, that was in the Japanese Imperial Army, and massacred Chinese peasantry. So, they do this wherever they're at.
It's like Argentina and Chile, and Venezuela, like the German Nazi expats. Peru gets all the, imperial Japanese.
Yeah.
Was there, when Japan was a rising industrial power, and there was a time when it was like the major capitalist threat to U.S. hegemony. Was that when Japan became, or the Japanese migrants to Peru became such a formidable force in their politics? Or
it happened in waves, right? I think the first wave was in the 1800s, and then another one, after or during and after World War II. So, not surprisingly, the Fujimoris come from that lineage and are ravaging Latin America as well.
That's insane. So then, with what's happening in Bolivia now, because I've been so confused by all the players, Chris and I were trying to suss it out before you got on here. There was Arce, who was polarizing. Am I pronouncing his name right, by the way? Arce?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, Arce. I've only read it. There's Arce, he's polarizing, it seems. And when the elections happened, because Arce, I don't know what his deal was. I know he staged a fake coup at one point to shore up popularity. What was up with that?
Yeah. It's to be determined, I think. I'll say that for journalistic purposes, but yeah, that's kind of what it looked like. Odyssey was a polarizing character, and actually, I think it was the other day before I interviewed Evo. I need to get that ready for Black Agenda Report, but him this question, so what happened with Odyssey, right? Because that was his economic minister at one point, and then obviously he chose him to be the next in line, right after the coup in 2019. And his response was kind of just like, we made a mistake in selecting certain cabinet members that were not a part of the militancy of the MAS, right? Like, this is someone that went to, I want to say London School of Economics, some, Western university to study economics. And he was in a previous administration under a neoliberal president. So it's not like theologically commit to socialist economic policies. I think much like the urban petit bourgeois, usually European mix in La Paz, it became very easy to fall into leftist politics, right? And sort of rest on the laurels of the extremely hard work that it takes to organize your community, right? Especially if you're talking about deep in the Andes Mountains. So I think a lot of the PMC class in La Paz that kind of took over the party infrastructure of the MAS. That was the class that was in power the last 6 years in Bolivia, right? Prior to La Paz coming in. And if you go to Cochabamba, where Evo lives, they consider Arce a traitor. They consider a lot of people that run in his crew traitors. And I think one of the biggest things that I've been reflecting on the last few days is how tiny Bolivia actually is. It's a country of 11 million people. There are more people in Lima than the country of Bolivia, right? So like word gets around really fast. And I will say this as an independent journalist at that, sort of traveling around the global South and trying to be in communication with social movements. It's not a smart idea to be in cahoots with a liberal traitor president, right? Like you're gonna get thrown out of certain places, right? So when someone like an Ali Vargas is in China reporting on Bolivia, ask him why he isn't allowed to be in Cochabamba anymore, right? Like this guy. It's kind of crazy. I would say like, hey, maybe this is the opportunism within the, European born elite in La Paz that are just, kind of opportunistically fell into lefty politics to make a name for themselves, right? They get a huge Twitter following and then can report on Bolivia from China without letting the audience know, hey, I can't go back to Cochabamba because I absolutely betrayed the people that I used to work with. That's just me being petty.
And yeah, what is the relationship? Because obviously you talked about the lithium triangle. This is a big deal. You have China has a lot of it natively. They have a lot of lithium, but they also do 65% of the world's processing of lithium. The United States, of course, can't process it, can't make batteries, can't keep up with CATL or anything like that. What's the relationship, as somebody who's from there, what's the relationship to China and Peru at the moment?
Yeah, well, I literally was just talking about this with some comrades. The port of Chancay is a huge deal. The port of Chancay is a port between China and Peru that was signed, interestingly enough, during the Boluarte regime, and has been, open, I want to say, a good year now, if not maybe a little bit longer. And I don't see that the U.S. has necessarily made any moves against that, but I would say, and especially as Venezuela is under attack, Cuba is under attack, Iran is showing the U.S. that what needs to happen. I do think the big flashpoint that the U.S. is moving towards is China, right? So I think the port of Shanghai is going to be a front line in that battle. But I do think that we see that really all over the world, right? I think in a lot of sense, it may not be connected or seem like it's connected, but for example, Haiti, right? If the U.S. is preparing itself for a war, an eventual war with China, it needs a manufacturing hub, right? Haiti has always been looked at as that, right? Specifically, if you think about, and Dr. Jimena Pierre, another BAT member, writes about Haiti. Check out her work on Block Agenda Report and other outlets. But one thing she always says, right, is the importance of Haiti when it comes to the eventual war with China, because all of the manufacturing that happens in China is going to have to go somewhere, right? One of those places would then be Haiti. It's not a coincidence that the U.S.-backed paramilitaries have decimated some of the places that have been the strongest organizing places for manufacturing and factory jobs, right? These things are not disconnected, so I do think we have to watch out for that.
Haiti is such a thing too. It's like right now you have Eric Prince, who farmed Blackwater. He's down there right now, openly killing poor people, what he calls gang members, with drones, autonomously, just creating a lot of fear down there. And then the richest people in Haiti, one of the guys' names is Gilbert Biggio. He's one of the wealthiest Zionist, billionaires in the country. He's traded arms. He's done all this horrible shit. His business interests come above everyone else. And now you have Haiti, for the last 60 years, are making our T-shirts at gunpoint. And when they throw a revolution or whatever, and they overthrow their government, we go in there and immediately rectify things in order to keep that supply chain going. My only wonder is, does the United States have the manufacturing power or the manpower or the gumption to pull this off? Because the idea is to sweep through South and Central America and re-imperialize it and try to get it, because they're scrambling to keep this whole thing afloat. But at the same time, China and Russia are bringing aid to these countries in need. They're bringing aid to Cuba and stuff. And I just wonder, I think it's an eventuality. They're going to start a war with China and they're going to lose. And then we're going to have a shot at some socialism. That's my
yeah. I mean, inshallah, right? I do think that
God willing.
It requires the unity of the peoples of those places, right? That's what did Chavez say? Unidad. That is what we need to do in terms of the terrain of struggle, right? The very same systems that are detaining people in Delaney Hall are bombing little schoolgirls in Iran, are massacring people in Haiti, are denying fair elections in Colombia. We could go on, right? So I do think that it requires a unity of the struggles of the peoples in these places, because I think you're right. It is an eventual war with China is coming. We understand and see the contradictions are heightening, right? I mean, it's the perfect time to be a revolutionary, honestly. No better time than right now than really being engaged in struggle and heightening those contradictions, I think.
It's totally back in style, and I can't wait to live through it. Yeah, I was always a big fan of the 60s, because I grew up thinking, well, these guys almost had it, almost did some stuff, and then was really disappointed that history ended up the way it did. And then come to find out, I think a lot of people are learning things about the country they're from that they will never unlearn. Like whatever Gaza happened on their phone, that like regular, good, well-to-do liberals are now radicalized and will never be the same. And I think what's also really apparent, which gives me hope, is the idea that what's happening is desperation. The killing, the openly killing and getting rid of the rules-based order. This is a desperation that really indicates, oh yes, communism is going to win. And we're struggling to make that not be the case. And, Oklahoma and Florida are starting anti-communist classes for people. They're going to start teaching people the Bible, and it's going to backfire. They're not going to get people they're not going to do this. It's not going to work. So that gives me a little bit of hope. But the thing is, and this video came out today with the pregnant woman, got thrown to the ground. This was everywhere today.
Wait, I don't think I've seen this. What?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it was a Palestinian.
Oh my God.
Palestinian asylum seeker. And then I think she was forced into labor because of the sheer impact of the fall.
Yeah, so she was there with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend saw something on the TV about his family getting killed. He freaked out and destroyed the TV. The cops came. A big standoff between the two of them. She's pregnant, about to give birth. And this bald cop, your typical, piece of shit, comes in and drags her to the ground. The rest of the cops are totally taken off guard. You could tell, like, this guy is the problem one. And then they I'll play it again. And they pull her to the ground, and then they go ahead and pull her hair at some point. There, she say, okay, you have to go. And he said, you know what, fuck this. Takes her by the arm, throws her onto the ground. All hell breaks loose. This guy starts fighting the big guy, which this guy's got big balls. And now they're pulling her fucking hair across and this is the Netherlands, okay?
One of the great social democracies that so many liberals.
Right.
What I myself paraded around as being a more advanced society than America. I live in Europe now, and I thought I was coming to some great place. And now the AFD is almost in power in Germany, and it's all
Europe
a joke.
Has always been a virus. I hate to say it.
Well, domestically, that they treat their people had been treating them people, if they're white, with more, social safety nets, stuff like this. Of course, there's a truth to the old liberal myth, but I've lived here fucking 10 years now. It's not like you think, though. Like, I'm never coming back to the U.S., though. Fuck that. I don't know why anybody's still there.
The worst European country is better than the U.S.
I know.
Yeah,
not saying
it's
much.
all right. I can go to the dentist.
We still can't do that here. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, the dentists have not come to the U.S. yet.
Yeah, Well, that's why you go to.
Yeah. Well, no, but in SoCal, people just drive to Mexico. Like, there's the entire, medical tourism industry in Mexicali, which borders San Diego.
Oh, interesting. We just go to the NYU dentistry school here. And hope, we just hope that you get a decent student.
I got my tooth knocked out by a German guy. I got in a fight and I got my tooth knocked out, and I had to go in Denmark. We were hitchhiking through the country, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any money, and I went to the Danish dental school. And these young giggling girls did a terrible job, and they ripped half the tooth out. And then they had to go run and get the guy. Oh, we screwed it! And they came running out, and they fixed it. It was like 40 kroner. I think I paid the last of my money to these people, but it was good. I think that's like $bucks or something.
That's not bad.
But that's the part of, like, if you're in the U.S., you're lucky enough to be in a place that has a university that has a dental school where you can get, like, most of the country in, like, the flyover states, especially, they don't, like, I was telling, we've been talking about this every week. The U.S. job market has been, at the best case, stagnant, and the only jobs that are being added are in healthcare. It's literally just healthcare, a little bit of construction for a little bit of the, last few quarters with AI data center build outs. And it's even then, it's only because we're adding all these healthcare jobs, because our healthcare system is so inflated and so poor, and we have such a sick and dying and aging population.
And we tag that onto our GDP and give ourselves a nice pat on the back. Look at how much money we're making out of charging $80 a cough drop.
Jesus. Yeah.
I'm totally blown away by this snake eating its own tail at this point, especially with the healthcare, because the healthcare is so over the top, bad.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there's an island nation 90 miles away that has managed, under the most genocidal blockade in history, human history, been able to do so much with medicine and healthcare, but the U.S. won't allow that here.
Didn't Cuba just released its vaccine against cancer, or a new vaccine against cancer?
A second vaccine, yes.
Second vaccine, that's right, yes. Literally, as they're being strangled.
Yes, exactly.
We had Lily Igla here last week. She was on I forget if you were on the delegation to Cuba.
No, not this time.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
she went down there. She had a lot to say. She had a good time, and then she learned a lot. But also that there was funnily enough, there was Cubans who were still cheering on, Trump and the idea that they were going to get liberated. And they said, "Well, we just want things to be better." And she's like, "That's not the way. That's not the good way to do it."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny. I think especially as for BAP. One of the first times that I was out there, we were out there with the Red Barrial Afrodescendiente, and going specifically to very African, also just as an aside, or maybe this is the bigger point, but Africa is very much Cuba is very much an African nation. And I think that helps explain a lot as to why the US is so aggrieved that this island of Africans, indigenous folks, mixed folks, etc., were able to free themselves, right? And I think why this assault and attack on Cuba has lasted for so long. But it was interesting walking around Cuba the first time, and you talk to folks, and they're like, "Oh, we miss Obama, da da da." And I'm like, I think Libyans might feel differently, but I get it, right? I get it.
Yeah, it is funny how, Obama was seen as the dovish president. Obviously, he destroyed Libya, but then between the Iran nuclear deal and the slight attempt at thawing relations with Cuba, Trump came in, derailed those projects, and then Biden kept on going. Because I think this is something like you were talking about, Chris, about the snake eating its own tail. Even Democrats understand that the only way the U.S. can maintain its supremacy is by breaking the rules. So, the era of the Obama soft face of imperialism is dead. Right. Whether you are, Biden facilitated a genocide in Gaza. After all, it's the New Jersey the New Jersey governor is sending in the state troopers to suppress. For all the hard talk against Trump and the Republican Party, all of these state Democrats are not doing anything to fundamentally challenge him.
Yeah.
Is this Havana we're seeing?
Yeah, it's like a Cuba walking tour, but I just wanted to get a taste, get a little flavor as we're talking about Cuba. But yeah, the U.S. is in a funny spot, and I find it funny because the morality has been vacuumed out of the country slowly over the course of a few hundred years. That there was a time that there was some semblance of civility among the people, but then I think with the privatization of education, we've slowly seen that people are now incapable of being kind in a lot of ways, but the empathetic people are being pushed further and further out into the margins of society. When Elon Musk comes out and says empathy's bad, and now there's all these fucking predator ass, right-wing fascist influencers who are saying that empathy is not a good thing, but then they get all upset when you killed Charlie Kirk. Like, pick, I don't know who killed Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk's murder, those payouts.
Exactly.
I don't.
Let's be fair. Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Let me just say that.
I don't have a theory on that one way or the other.
Me either. I'm like,
I don't.
One foot down.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean,
who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? I was talking today. I had to explain to a European that.
Yeah.
I mean, Seymour Hersh exposed that pretty in a fairly open and shut case. Yeah.
And the fact that I get upset just remembering that I'm in Germany and the German government did everything that they could to not investigate it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're just going to let that one go."
Well, that would trigger Title V, and they would have to go after,
Well, they have to vote if that's the case. If in Article 5, they have to get together and vote, because this is happening in Ukraine. Ukraine is now routing drones through Estonian airspace to try to doing whatever they can do, false flags or whatever, and they're going to try to rope. Romania the other day that hit an apartment complex, trying to rope NATO in it, but it's still, if it happens, they'll have to vote. The other thing is, Israel was attacking these flotillas. Now, these flotillas are marked with certain flags of certain countries, and by doing that, especially when they bomb them in the ports of places like Turkey and stuff, Greece, and these other places. Turkey is a NATO state, and Israel is actively saying, "Oh, we're going to fuck up Turkey next." Well, then NATO would effectively have to vote and see if they go to war with Erdogan. That won't happen. So now NATO is effectively dead and toothless,
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting position to be in, especially, the U.S. is not a lot without NATO.
Well, Trump is certainly hell-bent on destroying NATO, whether he knows it or not. I will say,
I'm up for.
Yeah. Trump, the great accelerationist.
Yeah.
Trump, the immortal science of Marxism, Leninism, Trumpism.
I didn't complain.
Destroying the vestiges of empire.
I didn't complain when he came in. I said, "Look, this guy's going to bring on this collapse way faster. So we're really going to get through this thing quick." So seems to be okay. He's exactly the president America deserves. That's exactly the right fit for these people in this system.
But I want to say one thing about Turkey is Israel and Turkey love to exchange words while having a lot of behind the scenes collaboration. Like when Erdogan made that big statement about not exporting any oil to Israel, the trade in oil only increased after that happened, because what he would do, he would then, Israel would find a way to ship oil to the West Bank, and then from the West Bank it would go to Turkey, even though it was Israeli quote unquote oil. There's no real, or vice versa. There is no the war with Turkey and Israel is one fought with words and fought with proxies. Like whether it's, helping Kurdish allies when they can. And Syria, Syria was won by Turkey at the end of the day. It was not necessarily won by the Gulf. Jolani did not take Syria alone. He took it with the Syrian National Army, which was for all intents a Turkish army. So I think, Pakistan is the rising power that, again, domestically very terrible, internationally is aligning itself more with China. They just hosted the anti-imperialist World Conference a few weeks ago, I think. So Turkey, I don't know. Don't put too much stock in Turkey, is what I'm saying. Turkey.
Well, it's all theater too. What is said, the truth is only in the ledgers. The real truth of the geopolitics is in the ledgers. And I always say this, I'll say it again. If you really want to know geopolitics, study zoology. You'll figure it out. You'll figure out what the motivations are of these people. Pakistan is a nuclear state too. And I thought China hated Muslims. I thought they were killing all the Muslims.
Right. Yeah. If you believe Adrian Zenz, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know who that is, Chris?
He was sent by God to destroy China.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I would know. And that's the big thing. You got to package that up neatly and deliver it to people who have never heard the good news that no, there's no genocide in China. This was another big myth. And like, you'll get deplatformed for saying this a lot of times. Lots of people really just don't get it. And yeah, and it's sad. It's sad. I was actually one of those people not that long ago.
What changed for you?
Being upset enough at the US to dig deep and show me all the skeletons in the closet of this country that, like, my hate for capitalism and for the US and the system is totally personal. It's personal from childhood, what it did to my friends, with my family. I'm not educated. I don't have a lot of scholars in my family. Not rich, grew up poor, was homeless 10 years. My mom was crazy, insane single mom. It screwed over everybody. I had friends commit suicide from poverty, from drug abuse. I've had people disappear in jails in New Orleans for a period of time. My cousin went to the military, came back, killed his whole family, and then killed himself, his 4 kids, and his 2 cats and his wife. Took away my mom's house in 2008 with those fucking loans that were subprime loans that increased an insane amount, and she couldn't hang on to it. Wasn't conducive to the mental illness that is onslaught in this type of society. And if you have a little bit wrong with you and a little bit of trauma, so for me, it's personal. But when I started to dig, I asked people like Vijay Prashad, and I go, yeah, well, China's like authoritarian, right? And he's like, hey, slow down now. And he sat me down on his knee and he told me, this is not really accurate, especially if you compare something like Saudi Arabia, who we're best friends with. We don't say anything bad about, and they are a self-prescribed monarchy, authoritarian state who takes great relish in decapitating people in the town square. So, and locking up journalists in Kuwait. So I saw the light, I guess, about 6 years ago, and been pretty hardcore ever since. But my introduction to politics was through ecology, right? So 10 years ago, I was fighting the ecological fight over pesticides, herbicides, stuff like this. But now, total class warrior here. Yeah, sorry, that's my life story. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks.
But Pakistan's got nuclear weapons. They're doing business with China. I mean, so what do you think is going to be the outcome in Bolivia? That's what we came to talk about. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Obviously, Rodrigo Paz is sweating bullets. The United States might have delivered some pepper spray or not. We don't know. What do you think the likely outcomes are?
Well, the U.S. government, not surprisingly, is doing what it can and what it does to not just break up the blockades, but also spy on the protesters, spy on Evo and his inner circle in Cochabamba. They have said, we can't lose Bolivia, we can't lose the lithium. Rodrigo Paz already signed a however many year contract with Elon Musk and Tesla. So they're gonna try to hold on tight to that country, but I don't think they understand the level of organization that Bolivia has, and especially in the last 2 decades. It is across the board 100%. The demand of the Bolivian masses that are mobilized right now is for his resignation. So I don't see him making it out. I would say, if this was Peru, there would be, it took the Congress to get Boluarte out, which unfortunately didn't happen from mass struggle and mass pressure. But I do think Bolivia is different in the sense that they are a much more organized society.
So I'm just so curious about all this. So when you say the U.S. is frantically trying not to lose Bolivia, despite it being, like you said, a country with a landlocked country with a smaller population than the entire capital city of Peru, is it purely because of the lithium, or is there also a geostrategic element to it?
There are certainly rare earth minerals. The Bolivia is a very interesting that region, that part of South America too, right? If you look at a map, Peru is both Pacific and in the Andes. Bolivia, as you mentioned before, is landlocked, but has massive amounts of resources when it comes to not just the lithium, but various other rare earth minerals. There's also obviously coca, right? The DEA was kicked out of Bolivia when Mas came in and Evo came in. They stayed in Peru and Colombia, and unsurprisingly, those two countries remain top two cocaine producers. The DEA is back in Bolivia, so we can expect those numbers to move up for Bolivia. But you know, it's U.S. imperialism. It's maintaining the natural resources that are so rich in Latin America and Bolivia in particularly, but Latin America in general. It's also one of the countries that, as I mentioned before, for the last 2 decades was on the left end of the spectrum, so politically. So, you know, it would be very advantageous for the U.S. to, you know, have yet another comprador class in Bolivia governing things. They do now, right? But again, as you are seeing, the masses of the people are resisting that.
And the organization that you're talking about here, are they all coalescing around Mas, or is there like a coalition of different indigenous campesino? Okay.
Yeah, so you know, there are various organizations. The main organization that called for the indefinite general strike was the KED, the Central of Bolivian Workers. But you know, there's various like city and neighborhood councils, labor unions, various labor unions, teachers, miners, and the funny thing is that, you know, the miners will bring their explosives. So it's like, all right, pigs, y'all want to, you know, fire tear gas? We got explosives.
Here, can I just say, in the U.S., miners vote for Trump. Miners are, you know.
Well, what I find most interesting about this is that, like, the idea that these working class people can have a foothold whatsoever in the country. It speaks, I guess, to maybe you can fill me in, but it speaks to the tight knit community. It hasn't been completely, you know, they're not consumerist in any advanced way like the United States is. If we tried this in the United States, we would fall. So what's to account for this? The fact that they're probably going to win.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, right, like the last 20 years of organization, of being organized at every level of society, whether it's, if you're a student, you're in the student union. If you're a worker, you're in that union. Your neighborhood council, you're in that council. You know, like, you are organized at multiple levels of society and are able to coordinate with other unions, other organizations, right? So I think it's just a matter of time for when Baz is going to resign. He was born in Spain, so really shouldn't, you know, I feel like it's almost poetic in a lot of ways. His father, and I forget else, former president of Bolivia, maybe it was his great-grandfather or something like that, I forget. So, you know, very much in a long line of right-wing dictators in the country. So yeah, I think it's the past 20 years. Oh, and to your question before around the Mas, are folks coalescing around that? So the Mas, as I mentioned before, Arce, right, and other petit bourgeois in La Paz kind of took over the MAS, right? So that the base of the MAS had to kind of let go of that party, and there was a new party that formed, Evo Pueblo, and political instrument, but that did not have enough votes to go through. He was also proscribed in the latest election, not allowed to run. So there was a null vote campaign, which would have won, right? So that's kind of politically, like electorally, that's where things are in Bolivia. It remains to be seen what comes out of this, right? I don't think that necessarily there is alignment under, like, all right, we're all going to be under Evo Pueblo, but just even judging from the null vote campaign, that kind of would be probably the largest political party in Bolivia that would have votes right now.
Wow, that's crazy. So when we talk about the organizations that do exist, though, in society, where, like you said, it seems like every worker, every student is part of some kind of union. Did that happen under the tenure of Morales's leadership? Oh, okay, so this
Yes.
drive to organize the country was a direct result of, okay.
That is the direct legacy of Evo Morales, of the MAS, of the political education that country has undertaken in the past 2 decades. That's the legacy that Bolivians are protecting right now, right? Like, Evo was hugely instrumental in the building of RUNASUR, of SALAC with Fidel Castro, and Hugo Chavez in their time, right? Like, he comes from that milieu and that radical tradition, which is what, Bolivians are protecting right now, that legacy. And anytime I've been there, if I'm like talking to like taxi cab drivers or people selling things in the sidewalk, I like to talk to people and just be like, yeah, so like, what do you see what's happening? And the last time I was there was during the first round of elections, I want to say, and so many people said, right, like, well, what can we do? Like, Evo taught us we have to be organized, so we have to be organized.
Wow.
Yeah. I got ready today because I was all jazzed about Bolivia, and I've read Evo Morales' Wikipedia page quite a lot in the last, like, 5 years, I think, and learned a lot. We were talking before we came on that there was this case. A young girl came out and said that she was molested and then escaped the state and then escaped the country and then said that she did that under duress, and the police forced her to say all these things. And I wanted to point out some statistics here. So under Evo Morales, the percentage of the population living in extreme poverty drops drastically from 38% down to 15% from 2006 to 2019. Overall poverty rates fell from 59% down to 36%. So big decline in poverty, which something pretty cool to do in my book. I don't know about other people. His presidency, Bolivia's GDP quadrupled. So this is what really scared them, is the idea that not only were they becoming more educated, taking back their mineral rights and stuff, but they were making buku money doing it, and can't have that. The GDP doubled per capita effectively during the same period, signaling a rise in average economic productivity, individual purchasing power. Literacy rates went up, healthcare expansion, rural infrastructure, child malnutrition was eradicated, had 50% decrease in child malnutrition rates through the country. So a good leader, somebody who is a countryman who is looking out for his people. This is what that was the conclusion I came to reading about this fella. Seems like a pretty radical left-wing guy. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that it has been one of the pleasures of my lifetime to be able to see Evo in person speak about neoliberalism, decolonization, anti-imperialism, and how the peoples of Nuestra America can unite to defeat U.S. imperialism. Yeah, I think he's one of the strongest labor leaders that we have.
And when he talks in that rhetoric, it's not in the same social democratic way that we see from a lot of other Latin American politicians who, I mean, they all pander to indigenous populations and talk about neoliberalism, but like, well, you know, like Scheinbaum, I don't know what your thoughts on her are, but she's
yeah. I mean, you know, the pink tide should have been blood red.
What was about Kirchner? You had Kirchner in Argentina. Somebody tried to kill her. You know, they had a gun that jammed, and she wasn't assassinated. But then, of course, Millet comes in after. What did you think about Kirchner? Obviously, she wasn't, you know, red Marxist kind of person. What was the deal there?
I mean, I think she still was, to some degree, responding to left populism, but I think in a lot of ways made some calculations, maybe miscalculations. I think that that's probably true of a lot of the left in Latin America that have kind of, you know, you can talk about Lula, right, and his selling out of Haiti, his selling out of Boluarte, and actually his selling out of Bolivia right now, and it's selling out Maduro for sure. So I mean, with multiple governments throughout Latin America that should have been more principled, I think we're kind of seeing the blowback, right? That a lot of the countries that were under these social democratic governments are now under just red, or not red, I wish, but like far right governments. Right, you have Noboa in Ecuador, you have Milei, you have Cast in Chile, a literal Nazi. You have Fujimori potentially winning in Peru. Right, Colombia's elections today. Ali in Guyana next to Venezuela, right? A lot.
What happened in last I read, it was Xiomara Castro in Honduras, and she was left to some degree, right? But now there's another person in. Does anybody know?
Yeah, I forget her name now. But so Xiomara Castro's husband, right, was taken out in a coup in 2009. She comes in as sort of after several right-wing governments. She comes in, you know, starts sort of governing for the people a little bit more, and pretty, as is typically the case, comes up on the U.S. radar. But this person now, I know less about, but I know is in that left-wing tradition.
But when it comes to the Latin American left, and this is just something you can please tell me if I'm off base with this, because this is just something I'm sort of picking up. It seems that what made Bolivia unique and successful is that its politics were rooted in the rural indigenismo, if you could call it, if you will, that these more petty bourgeois urban social democrats don't have. Is that fair to say when we talk about?
Yeah, 100%. And that's because that's the majority of Bolivia are, you know, indigenous rural folks, right? The cocaleros, that's the majority of Bolivia.
But it was, for many years, it was ruled by the like European descended urban bourgeois, right? Okay.
Absolutely. That would be most of, you know, Bolivian Republican history, at least.
I run into while this thing started, you have people on Instagram saying, as a Bolivian, I feel like this, that, the other. And then you look on their accounts like based in Canada, based in the United States. Is there a diaspora that is just as insane as the Iranian diaspora inside the United, or are these bots as well?
If they're as insane as the Iranian diaspora, because that is a particular type of
that's a high bar.
Yeah, there are gusanos everywhere, right? Every nation has their gusanos that left, right? Look, Miami is crazy, filled with all kinds of gusanos. Yeah, I mean, I would refer folks to my comrade Erica Keynes and Hood Communist, who writes a lot about this missed or manipulation, maybe, of lived experience, right? I'm a Bolivian, therefore you should listen to me, but your class characteristic is not, right, shown right away, or that's, yeah, I think it's easy to say I'm a Bolivian, therefore you should listen to me, without necessarily having to engage the struggle, the class struggle of it all, right?
Yeah.
When Evo Morales was overthrown in 2019, here in LA, there was almost immediately a protest outside of the embassy, and it was funny because it was very large for a country that other, like my roommate at the time was like, wait, where is Bolivia? Like most people did not know. There was a very large, substantial showing up between all the local left groups and a lot of the indigenous, Bolivian expats, you could tell. And then adjacent to our protest, there was this small group of Christians. I mean, they did look, Latin American, and they had a sign that said, "It's not a coup, it's called democracy." And they were all just praying. Oh. So yeah. I think that might be the extent of the diaspora, Chris. I don't know. They just want to pray pray the socialism away.
And by the way, gusano means worm, right? Or caterpillar.
Worm.
And the Fidel Castro is the one that gave them the counter-revolutionaries this name. So this goes back to the Cuban Revolution. So, but ladies and gentlemen, it can be applied to any diaspora who feel like they're better than everybody and are willing to enslave other people in order to exploit them for whatever reason. Turns out that this transcends borders, this idea that some folks think that they're better than other people, monarchists in Iran, all of Israel. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, God, this is so disgusting. It's not just happening in Argentina, although I know that it's happening a lot in Argentina, but IDF soldiers coming fresh off their fucking genocide, going to vacation in the Patagonia, setting fires, right? Like, essentially trying to settle parts of the Patagonia. I also heard that they're doing similar stuff in Cusco, and that there were fires, I want to say maybe last year, in the town next to Cusco in Pisac. So I mean, like, Zionism is not just contained to West Asia and Palestine. So it is very much spreading. This colonial cancer, much like cancer cells, is spreading. So
I see this happening, and I try to put a more of a larger bird's eye view on it, because I think that with the West collapsing like it is, what you're saying is an absolute loss of morality on purpose, being perpetuated by the state. We're kind of being nudged into being this way, but at the same time, then everything that white people are doing now is just so destructive, whether it's like family relationships or their voting patterns or their, online habits or whatever. Everybody in the West is ready. Like this guy threw a rock at a seal the other day and said, "I'm rich, I could pay for it." And then all the locals just beat the shit out of him, which was awesome. You didn't see this?
No.
In Hawaii, of those places, I think.
Yeah. I'm a big animal rights guy. I'm like the vegan guy. I had a lot of vegan animal rights activists. That shit really doesn't, I don't like that. And I think that this is just, I see a pattern. It's not even political. It's just like human behavior. There's a mass psychosis going around where we're no longer playing by any set of rules because there's an induced madness because our society is so fucked up, you know. That's just my take.
Yeah.
Well, I think, I do want to ask, just to circle back on, I hadn't heard of IDF soldiers going to Cusco, but that's alarming.
Yeah.
What does your average Peruvian think of, if it's a point of discussion at all? I'm just curious. What does your average Peruvian think of Israel?
I think
Okay.
Thankfully, you know, the average Peruvian is like, get the fuck out, genocide heirs, right? But there's actually a long history in Cusco and Palestine prior to the creation of the fake state of Israel. As I think actually this was already passed after the Balfour Declaration. You know, people are already getting sort of kicked off their lands already. So quite a bit of, I think the largest Palestinian community outside of Palestine is in Chile. Peru, not as much, but there are quite a lot of Palestinians in Peru, and there's even in Cusco. There's a statue of Jesus. Whatever. I guess we like Jesus, but it was it was a present from the Palestinian community to the people of Cusco for sort of accepting them. And there's a big, even in Lima, there's a big Peru Palestinian population. Some of the best shawarma is in Surco. I miss it.
That's so funny.
Wow.
So then but these Palestinians, are they like the Palestinian descendants? Have they become just absorbed into the like campesinos?
Yeah, I don't know so much about Cusco. I would say that the Palestinians in Lima have become more absorbed into just kind of the petit bourgeois. So they're, it's interesting, right? Like they are able to make the connection with like Zionism and the theft of their land in Palestine, but like will vote for Fujimori. Don't ask me why.
Well, it's the class politics, like you're saying.
Right.
It's it's
right. Yep.
It's not necessarily about your identity. You don't construct your monetary interests around, your identity. Well, Bukele is also sadly Palestinian.
Right. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
I mean, we don't talk about that for many reasons, but interesting. This is in Peru, Chris. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, these are protesters in Peru protesting what's happening in Gaza. So, yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know that they had the population there and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how big the population is, but certainly enough that there's like a little Palestine in Lima.
Huh.
Yeah.
And by the way, here's the one that you got asked for too. This is the guy throwing the rock at the endangered seal.
Oh my God.
If you didn't have enough misery in your life, here's a cute little baby seal that we're going to throw a fucking rock at because we're rich enough to afford the fine. I think that's what he said.
Yeah, it is. Also, I just got a notification that Petro is saying that he does not accept the results of the election.
So are the results?
Yeah, it was between the guy with three names, the De La M something, the far right, and Cepedes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to face down in a runoff.
Interesting. Because, dear comrade Adamu Baraka lives out in Cali, and I think he was supposed to do some live tweeting, but he's old now. He can't do the fucking live Twitter. But he was supposed to I think he was going to go to a couple different polling places and just to, check out what's happening, what the mood is. But yeah, Colombia is an interesting flashpoint as well.
Yeah, you wonder. I mean, well, we were talking before you got on about the alliance. That what was that network that was exposed between Argentina, Israel, and the U.S. That was meant
right.
specifically to undermine left-wing governments in Latin America.
Well, yeah,
Is Shield of
it's
the Americas?
happening. I see that. Yeah.
I think it was Drop Site News that exposed it.
Yeah. I'm forgetting now, but yeah, of course this makes sense.
Of course it makes sense. Yeah, of course they are. They're not even hiding it. He's going over, Millet's going to the Wailing Wall. He's doing his thing. Yeah, it's totally clear. Now they came out with the thing today that said the United States and Israel are now going to intertwine their militaries even tighter than they're like, we're going to work together. It's like, you already were the same place.
Right.
Well, this comes at a time when Netanyahu is really ramping up autocratic rhetoric about Israel being a self-sustaining entity because they can no longer rely on the U.S. But the reality is that both parties are still sending copious amounts of aid to Israel with no signs of slowing down. It's just the rhetoric and the sentiment is shifting, and I'm sure they think that at some point it will produce some material result.
It was a mutually exclusive sort of relationship, mutually beneficial relationship for a long time. It still is. If they lose Israel, the United States is even in such a worse financial predicament than they already are. But Israel saw the decline of the United States coming. This is why they did all this, because they thought they had one Hail Mary shot at making their what is it called? Greater Israel Project.
Yeah.
And so they waited for this moment. They had intelligence Hamas was going to do this. Happened to kill a bunch of left-wing, ravers. That was perfect for a right-wing government. They're like, oh yeah, just go kill some people, and then we'll pin on them. Then we'll start a war, and then we'll just keep going, and we'll just exhaust our propaganda machine. Which they ran out of fuel, and they said, yeah, well now we're just killing people, and we're not trying to hide it anymore. And they say, yeah, it's too bad the social media didn't work, but we're still going to keep expanding into Lebanon and all this stuff. So the timing was perfect. Like they knew that pretty soon the United States was no longer going to be able to help them. And time is ticking. I really think by 2008, there will be massive economic problems in the United States. There will be mass incarceration of leftists by then. All the camps that they're building, they're reopening prisons right now. They're, renovating all this. They're employing basically brown shirts, every Proud Boys, people like this, putting them in positions in the DHS and stuff, arming the worst possible people, overlooking criminal records and Nazi tattoos. 2008 is going to be the worst year. It's going to be the 1940 of
2008 or 2028?
Oh, what did I say? 2028.
I mean, same thing, right?
Going back in time. It's all bad.
Yeah.
No, 2028 will be the linchpin that by then,
the 1939 of the 21st century,
something like that. The AI bubble will pop, the real estate bubble will pop, a lot of the speculation will fizzle out by then. China will pick up speed.
But you know what I find so interesting about the AI bubble is that already all these companies are running out of tokens for the AI infrastructure they bought. So places like Uber and like Microsoft, for example, they can no longer afford the AI use that they've invested in, that's supposedly going to cut all these jobs. So now this is coinciding at a time when OpenAI and other AI companies are about to go public. So you have to wonder, is this, I don't even know if the AI bubble is going to last until 2028, but.
The other thing is the stock buyback, thing that they've been doing for the last decade or so, where they legalized it and then they just started going willy-nilly and stuff. This is also starting to show its uselessness, because you can't not innovate and then just use your cash to buy back stock. And then like Google is sitting on mountains of cash because of their advertising and all this other stuff. So when in doubt, they just buy back their stock. And then they complain about China and their market distortions. Oh, they subsidize too much. They're evil. It's crazy. And this won't last. And again, they want to go to war with China, and they want the high-tech weapons that need the germanium and the gallium and all these crazy shit you never heard about minerals. They need those in order to build these weapons that they need to defeat China. Well, China's the only one that makes them. It's not going to go good. It's going to be bad, and they're going to take it out on people domestically, most certainly.
Well, the U.S. has already wasted most of its interceptors in defending Israel from Iran and defending its own bases from Iranian missiles. Like half of its interceptors are depleted, which they knew this was going to happen. Everyone knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
They just did it.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah, I mean they couldn't do Iran without taking Venezuela first, right? They didn't know the Strait of Hormuz was going to happen, but they did that shit anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to take.
Their intelligence wasn't as good as they thought. They underestimated Iranian rocket power and and the amount that they could make. They underestimated the fact that they could control the Strait of Hormuz. Totally showed that Saudi Arabia or the Gulf states are a paper tiger, that they have no ability to defend themselves reasonably. And they were high on Venezuela. They were like, oh, we could do anything if it's that easy. And literally, Trump is not a smart person. Pete Hegseth is not a smart person. Marco Rubio is not a smart person. You get all these really not smart people together, you're going to have some not smart outcomes.
Well, I feel like Marco Rubio is going to be the president in 2028. I feel like we're going to see a Rubio. He's going to be both the first Latin American president and the last American president, period.
I think it'll be Kid Rock. Kid Rock will be president. He'll be perfect. He'll be the perfect candidate.
Oh, no.
But I think... But I'm curious because Ukraine and Russia are also playing it out so much in other theaters of war and like Africa, for example. Are Ukraine and Russia as invested at all in other Latin American politics than they are in?
Yeah. Interesting you say that, because when the Russia-Ukraine proxy war started, Southcom was trying to get quite a lot of countries in Latin America to switch over, essentially swap out any Russian and Soviet era weaponry that they might have with US weaponry. And so when they took Peru through Boluarte, interestingly enough, I think Peru had been like the third or fourth country that had the highest amount of like Russian and Soviet era like weaponry and artillery, etc. So they were very, insofar as the proxy war against Russia, were very like eager to get whatever Russian and Soviet era weaponry from Latin American countries to the front lines in Ukraine. But I'm sure there's other countries too that they're waiting to get. I don't even know if it's just the weapons, but resources and materials to go towards the proxy war in the Ukraine.
Okay. So I'm just curious, in the sequence of events that would happen in Bolivia, for example, let's say current president steps down, does that trigger a special election, or do the people seize power in a coup?
Yeah.
Or okay,
right. It would, and I could be wrong. I'm gonna have to like do some constitutional reading. I do think it would trigger, an election. I have to see exactly what the protocol would then be, because the Constitution is still the plurinational Constitution that was passed during Evo. I forget which administration, probably the first one actually. So the people respect their Constitution. That is a Constitution of the and by the people. So I certainly think that they would, follow what is in the Constitution in that term. I mean, right now, a lot of the folks in the blockade, so there's like as of this morning, 94 blockades throughout Bolivia. A couple weeks ago, it was at 30. Now it's at 94. I think most of them are highways or roads that connect to the Panamericana. The Panamericana highway stretches from Panama to Chile. And for all the countries that it takes up, right, is like runs through, that highway for any social movement in any of those countries, that is the Strait of Hormuz in terms of blocking trade. You shut down the country if you can take Ghana, right? So Bolivians really, really know their country well and understand where the pressure points are that would stop all trade, halt all, anything. The folks in Cochabamba took the airport there because they were getting missiles and other things sent over from Argentina. Drones, I think, actually. But yeah, so the workers of Bolivia know their country very well.
Drones from Argentina. Argentina produces drones. Okay.
Right. Yeah, well, during the Boluarte regime, we were getting ammunition sent over from Brazil, and everyone was like, when the fuck did the Brazil start manufacturing that?
Crazy. Yeah. Argentina, known for over leveraging itself and relying on imports and also IMF bailouts for the last 20 years. It's the most indebted country next to the Ukraine to the IMF.
Yes.
Well,
exactly.
The indebtedness stems a lot from Peronismo, right? Just like the years of spending money it didn't have on building up that strong central state. I don't know if that's correct. It's just my understanding of Peronism.
I think it was more globalism and the idea that they could make one thing and not collapse. But lots of countries went through this and found out the hard way that even if you have oil or whatever, that you have to diversify your economy. You have to do it quickly so that the U.S. doesn't screw you or squeeze you on the world stage or like drive down the price of beef and totally fuck Argentina, which they've done that before.
Yeah. And multiple rounds of IMF packages, right, that forced the Argentinian state to sell off its private resources. But certainly Peronismo can be blamed for quite a lot.
Yeah, well, I think it was you who told me that Evita is still, for all the musical theater nerds in the chat, Evita is still revered, though, as a popular leftist figure there.
Oh,
right?
100%. Yeah. No, I mean, one of the organizations in the Zone of Peace campaign is Movimiento Evita. Right, they are Peronistas. Those are comrades too. Can struggle around certain things, but yeah.
Well, so she represented the softer side of Perón.
Yeah.
And can you tell everyone in the chat what the Zone of Peace campaign is that the Black Alliance of Peace is spearheading?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Zone of Peace campaign was launched in 2023, April 4th, 2023, from 3 different locations: Havana, Cuba, Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and Washington, D.C. Why it was important for it to be launched from Havana, Cuba is that in 2014, CELAC, the Community of Caribbean and Latin American States, declared that Latin America and the Caribbean should be seen and respected internationally as a zone of peace. So what does demilitarization look like, right? Getting SOUTHCOM and U.S. military bases out of the countries, returning Guantanamo to Cuba, returning, de-occupying Puerto Rico, multiple things, right? Even the Malvinas Islands, returning that to Argentina. So in 2014, CELAC declared that, Latin America and the region should be seen as a zone of peace. But that kind of just stayed a state-sanctioned or state-centered call. And for us in BAP and then with our other partner organizations, we believe and we know that unless it's the masses of the people that are taking up a call, it doesn't really move, right? So as mass-based organizations and movements on the ground, we are building the U.S. NATO out of our Americas network. We've been building with organizations throughout the region, particularly in the Caribbean, and throughout the region, Argentina, Chile, Peru, Bolivia, Brazil, Haiti, Colombia, Ecuador, etc. And yeah, we've been working together for a couple of years now, continuing to move and push the Zone of Peace campaign. You can visit, I think it's zoneofpeace.org, or you can go into the Black Lions for Peace website, and then one of the options is Zone of Peace, and you can check out all of our demands, all of the work that we've been doing. A lot of it entail, recently, obviously the recent indictment of Raul Castro. So defense of Cuba in that sense, defense of Venezuela when the kidnapping of Maduro and Celia happened. As I mentioned before, I'm in Jersey, really close to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where Maduro and Celia are still held. And actually every third of the month, so it's coming up for June 3rd, there's like a noise demo that happens outside of that FMDC. So we've been out there as part of BAP, as part of the Zone of Peace campaign, really pushing not just to show support to Maduro and Celia, but also to engage the people in Brooklyn that are near the detention center that, hey, do you know that there's human rights abuses that are happening in that detention center? Not just because of Maduro and Celia, but obviously, all of the abuses that happen to so many people in MDC and beyond. I think Luigi Mangione is still in there, so, shout out to him. I think Sicilian, right?
Yes, Southern Italian for sure. Yeah, he's got the dark curly hair. Everybody knows it.
Forget about it.
No, I'm from Jersey. This is what we do. I like to say that I am garlic adjacent. I'm not Italian, but I grew up around a lot of Italians, so.
Because my family's.
Yeah, you're Italian.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, my family's been here for the last, like, not even 100 years. So when someone was like, do you guys do the 7 fishes thing? I was like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, no, it's a thing on Christmas Eve that Italian Americans do where you have like a feast of 7 fishes. That's not a thing in Italy. So I never grew up doing that. It wasn't until much later in life I learned that was a thing people did. I was like, what? But it's primarily like an Italian American Eastern Seaboard thing.
Yeah, that's so funny. I think we were talking, and I'm glad that you said it because I was right all along, but Jersey has better pizza than New York.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Bold statement.
Yeah.
Best pizza in the world.
True.
Naples, Italy. Italy. Nope. It's the birthplace of pizza.
Incorrect.
I had pizza in a cone. I had pizza in a
Good cup. For you. That's not how you eat a pizza.
You ate the pizza that's being, tailored to tourists, Chris.
Yeah. No, I was in the rough part of Naples. I stayed with a blind communist Italian guy and played music in the oldest part, Mas Vecchio, the oldest part of Italy. I was hitchhiking through there.
Oh, nice.
The thing about pizza is that my Nonna didn't want any of her children or her children's children or her children's children's children eating pizza because in Italy it was considered peasant food. She would constantly say, "Oh, that's a low class. You don't want that." Oh, we lost Clau.
She'll come back. That's true. It's peasant food. Mm-hmm. It's the same. It's the same when you go to New Orleans. Like that was peasant food. You have the po' boys.
Yeah.
If you go to New Orleans and the fancy, even lobsters. Lobsters used to be like the grossest thing nobody wanted, and now they're fancy.
They were eaten to borderline extinction, and that's now why they're such a prized commodity.
Yeah. I'm not in for what's fancy anymore.
Sorry,
What?
I dropped off for a second, and I would like to think that is the feds. That
Probably.
It wasn't all the talk about revolutionary movements in Latin America. It was like, oh no, she's on the pizza game on New Jersey. We got to cut this out.
Yeah.
We got to cut this off.
Talk about politics, but don't talk about fucking pizza because the CIA will kill you.
New Haven style is the most underrated part of.
No, listen. I grew up in the town where they The Sopranos. Pixeland was my spot growing up, and that's what's featured in the rolling credits. They still have like a table and a Bible dedicated to Tony Soprano there, James Gandolfini. So I
like this girl. You brought me this bad bitch. She'll kill you. She's like, I got the best pizza, and I'll kill you. Oh,
it's the Jersey in her.
It's a Jersey thing.
It's the Jersey in her. Jersey. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. It's the Jersey, poorest barrio and Barrios Altos. It's a nation of that. Oh.
You're from the Jersey of Lima and the Jersey of the U.S. is what you're saying.
Here?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. No, I mean it was bound to happen. I'm a fighter. I fought in Bolivia last year for Carnival. It was actually Oliver Marcus's girlfriend at the time, and I was like, "Bitch, you gonna throw a lit cigarette at me? Let's go." I was like, "Not only are you a fucking sellout, you threw a lit cigarette."
We're getting so much shit about Oli Vargas and his associates today. My goodness.
Good. I mean, yeah.
She threw a lit cigarette at you? Is that just what happens?
I mean, we were from like 7 a.m, so I think she was just like very, very drunk. But the altitude in the Andes, and you're drinking it happens, right? So I'm sure she didn't mean to throw a lit cigarette at me, but where I come from, that is an offense. I was like, "Oh, bitch, you fucking played me now." Yeah, she got a taste of Jersey.
Both the Jersey and the is there a large Peruvian expat population in Jersey though?
Huge. Patterson, part of Patterson is Little Lima is considered like funny. It's Little Lima, and then next to Little Palestine in Patterson, New Jersey. So yeah, there's a big population here.
Oh, interesting.
I think Patterson and maybe Chicago are one of the largest. Yeah, one of the largest Peruvian diaspora is from Peru. Type family from Peru. I don't know how big it is there in LA. Yeah, I'm not sure how big the diaspora there is.
I mean, it varies. I feel like, I know there's large Peruvian clusters in Virginia. LA just has a large Latin American population in general.
Yeah.
There's that guy who went viral for in LA for protesting for Palestine with his daughter. He's Peruvian. I've encountered him.
Yeah. I forget his name though. I think he's a PSL
Same.
member. Funny enough.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, PSL's they have the numbers. They have the numbers here. I'm telling you, I'm so tired of seeing all these damn electoral ads for California politics here. It's all just Tom Steyer and everyone attacking Tom Steyer because they know that if he drops out, Xavier Becerra gets the governorship, and if Yaraman drops out, then Spencer Pratt gets.
Oh my God!
Oh, no. Did you not know?
Spencer Pratt potentially being
Spencer Pratt. Yes, that's Spencer Pratt.
Is he running for mayor of LA?
Yes.
We actually have some footage of Spencer Pratt. Hang on, let me bring it up.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
Spencer, he keeps running. If you drive through all the like rich neighborhoods, you'll see the lawn signs, but all of his billboards are AI slop of like a crime-ridden Angeles in flames. It's just billboards, and they're like, "Save Los Angeles, vote Spencer Pratt." And it's like, I mean, Nithya Raman, she got the backing of all the progressives in 2020, only to do nothing like every other career politician. I mean, the DSA loved her. But you know how that goes. I think everyone in LA wants there to be a Zoran Mamdani, but I don't think the conditions are such that we can see a rise for, a figure like that, both because we don't have a serial sexual rapist as is,
Right. Yeah. Then, yeah. Well, even Mamdani, though, right? Like, he kept Jessica Tisch as NYPD commissioner, which you might as well just like, all right, Israel, you won.
Oh, yeah, because there was a big deal about him skipping the Israel Day parade, but then he sent Jessica Tisch anyway. Yeah, right.
That's all optics.
I'm going.
He's not. I mean, he's obviously. I know everyone was saying he's better than the alternative,
sure.
But that doesn't mean that he is the progressive darling.
Just when you're on a journey somewhere, I think you don't complain that you're not at the top of the stairs yet. You just take the first couple steps in the right direction and hope for the best. Maybe you're going to step on a nail. Maybe you're going to fall down. But this guy, if he's going to do at least half of what he says, it's going to be a fucking improvement.
Yeah, I think they're the first city-owned and run grocery stores have opened up. I have not been to one yet, but I want to.
It's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
You can cross the GW Bridge over there. You walk over there, or how do you?
I take the path usually, but most of the time I live out there. I live in Brooklyn in Flatbush.
I'm hip.
Yeah, I'm staying with my mom in Jersey, but most of the time I'm out in Flatbush. However, the rent is too damn high, so I had to sublet that shit.
Yeah.
Everyone's rent is high. I know. Well, it's funny because living in LA and having worked in the industry at one point, a lot of filming is now going to either abroad or New Jersey.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hollywood has totally collapsed. Nothing films in LA anymore. Like,
wow.
I don't want to say who, but I know someone who's working on a show that's set in South Carolina and is filming in so stupid. It's literally filming in the outskirts of London, England. And if that doesn't sound right to you, it's not. And it's like far away from London, so they've already burned through all the extras that they can use because it's on its second season. And this person is an assistant to someone important, so they were like, okay, I need 20 extras for this scene. Make sure they're all hot. I want it to be a Malibu beach party vibe. And then he gets there, and there are all these people in their mid-40s with all this mileage on them. And their boss is like, what the hell is this? And then he's
pale white people with bad teeth.
Yeah, literally. He's just like, what? You wanted 20 background? And he was like, these people are hideous. I told you I wanted a Malibu beach party vibe.
Adam always has the Hollywood beat. He's working the Hollywood beat. He tells us from LA.
Not anymore, but a lot of filming is like LA was for a long time the place where, like, one of the last few vestiges where like a trade could earn you a very comfortable middle class life. And now Hollywood is also deindustrialized because we explain the Well, the economics of it was the
Right.
streaming wars. Every studio was spending money they didn't have to try to beat Netflix. That's why Disney and Universal and Paramount all launched their own like fledgling streaming services. And then the reality is that that's not a profitable business model because there's no ad revenue. The subscriptions can't justify the cost for like Disney greenlighting $100 million plus show for Marvel or Star Wars. It's never going to make that money back. So all these companies turned off the valve and basically go to other places where it's tax subsidies, which is just a fancy way of saying the government gives you money to film there. So a lot of it's going to New Jersey now, but even then, like it's mostly in Toronto. Yeah, like LA has been hit very, very hard. And I mean, I don't think that's why, Paramount was bought by the Ellisons, who are now going to buy Warner Brothers, who were it's all being financed.
And film is dying for all intents and purposes, and the money behind it is also leaving. Like people aren't going to theaters. I don't know where they get these box office numbers for. They're all inflated. And
the sad part is they're not inflated because if a movie does 300 million, it's considered a success. Whereas in 2019, like there were 3 different movies that grossed over $1 billion that were being released.
Right.
Like they aren't being inflated. It's just,
waning yields, but the excitement about the movie is also being inflated. Because I just don't believe any of the numbers that would come out saying that 300 million, they did 300 million in through the door theater tickets. Who the fuck is going to movie theaters? I watch movies for free every day. I'm not going to a movie theater paying $8 for popcorn. I'm watching in my jammies. I'm watching in my fucking jammies.
Well, that's part of the reason why Hollywood's dying. You're part of the problem now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's all because of you. It's all the American expats living in Germany that are killing Hollywood.
I didn't know we had that power. That's amazing.
No, I mean, it's the streaming wars. It's TikTok and YouTube is also displacing like the economy for people's attention. Like the media landscape we grew up with where movies were the primary source of entertainment, which is also why I think a lot of the Ellison's ploy to take over CBS and cinema to push, Zionist techno-fascist propaganda. It's people don't go to these mediums anymore. Like the people are getting their information from meta companies. They're getting it from, like independent journalists like you guys, or, it's mostly in China. Well, yes, China's box office is still pretty healthy. China.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is the international market for movies is booming. I can't get on my little illegal movie site without getting a bunch of Bollywood movies and Argentinian movies. Like everywhere in the world is making movies now. I saw a really good Chinese action movie. It was amazing. Big budget, all that good stuff. Help me learn Chinese.
China also has its own form of like cinematic protectionism where they only allow so many foreign movies to come in every year. And even then they can't be released to compete with domestically made movies.
Interesting.
So even like every facet of the Chinese economy is so planned to the point where even a trip to the movies is being overseen by the state.
You know what I learned? I don't know if I learned this last week or this week, but China, did I tell you about this? China's McDonald's, they bought it out a long time ago, and the state runs it. 50% of it is, and they don't call it McDonald's, they call it the Golden Arches in Chinese, which I don't know the name. But they kept the thing, but the thing is, the ingredients are much, much, much better.
I can imagine, yeah.
In Germany, there's 12 ingredients, or I'm sorry, there's 6 ingredients in Germany in the fry. So it's like potato, salt, starch, something else. And in the United States, there's 12, something like this. I learned some things this week. I had a lot of reading to do. What?
Oh no, go
on. What are we thinking? What are you doing next week?
Probably.
What's your plan?
Delaney Hall some more, and I'm sure. Oh, the June 3rd demo outside of MDC.
It would be cool to have you on location. And I know you're probably streaming on your own thing, but during that time you could do segments and come on and you could talk to us and we could try to boost it and get it out there. And because we're looking to expand this darn thing here, because I don't make any money, but I really believe in what I'm doing because I hate everything and I need to do this. But I'm trying to make it big, like Mint Press or like BT News I like, or Gray Zone is cool. Just be another one of these kind of guys, status quo. Run it in tandem with everyone else's account so they can't shut us down, basically.
Yeah. Well, I'll be covering it for Black Agenda Report and Sovereign Media.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I'll definitely, happy to
throw us a bone. We would love to have you.
Not even a bone, but yeah, absolutely.
That would be awesome. I want to be all journalistic and doing good work.
Yeah,
Adam
is one of my favorite, Sicilian comrades, so got to do it. He said Jersey Peaks is the best, so he got my heart.
Yeah, it's true. It's just objectively true. New York pizza. Any place where the places where tourists don't go have the best pizza.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. He knows. He's Italian.
Yeah.
Well, we just call him Mormon Jesus because he looks exactly like the paintings inside the Mormon church, the white Middle East, Jesus from St. Louis, basically. Yeah. Well, look, let's cut it here. We'll talk after this. We'll leave all these people in the lurch. And everybody in TV land, make sure you hit the subscribe button and go out there and cause a lot of trouble and always say no to authority. And anything you want to say before we go, you guys?
No compromise, no retreat.
No compromise, no retreat. Don't take any shit from anybody. See you in the funny papers.